and welcome, independent researchers, skeptics, and all of humankind, to Shadow Citizen. Shadow Citizen will explore the shadows of an alternate reality. Your hosts, Rachael L. McIntosh.
All right, great. We're here, everybody. We made it through another week. I'm excited once again to be here. We have an awesome guest. We've got Field McCONNELL from abeldanger.org. That's A-B-E-L Danger, D-A-N-G-E-R.org. Now, if you're like me and you've sort of just gotten your head around that there's something else going on in the world than the mainstream media has been telling everybody, come across all different things online, and they'll be interesting, and some of them will seem kind of scary. And as most of you know, I'm writing a series of books. I'm on my fourth book, and it's called The Peanut Butter Pipeline. And the reason why I was online searching for something, and I came across Abel Danger, because it's something that comes up in my fourth book. And I wanted to talk to these people at Abel Danger to find out how they find out their information, if it's legit, if it's not legit. And so I'm really excited to have Field McCONNELL with us today, and I want to hear all about him and his background. And just welcome to the show, Field. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, but I just got a Skype message from the producer asking me to do something, and I can't see what he wants me to do. So if you know, it might be relating to my sound. Does my sound seem okay to you, Rachael?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll rely on him to communicate with you if he wants me to do anything.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I hear that you just told me, you told your guest that you're writing your fourth book. Mm-hmm. I'm writing a fourth book in a series, but I don't know how much you know about me.
No, that's why I have you on. I want to hear all about you, and I want to hear about stuff. Specifically, I'm very interested in demon face. But we can get to that when we get to that, because that has to do with something in my book.
Oh,
I want to hear. Yeah, I want to hear what you're interested in. I know that you guys are really into 9/11, JonBenet Ramsey, and the Malaysia Airline thing. And I'm also interested in the Malaysia Airline thing because where I used to work at this defense contractor, we had a very strange type of situation occur with a contract we were filling with Malaysia. And after I left is when all these Malaysian airlines were starting to just disappear, and I started to get really scared. I want to talk to you about both of those things. But once again, let's just start off with Who are you? What's Abel Danger? And let's start off there.
Well, my name's Field McCONNELL. It's F-I-E-L-D. I'm 68 years old. My academic background is I went to a series of excuse me, my throat's a little odd today because I just got off 2 hours also. I went to public schools up until my senior year, excuse me, my senior year in high school, when I had the privilege and the opportunity to go to Punahou School in Honolulu, Hawaii, which is the same school that Barack Obama, which is not his name, we'll just go right for the juggler. When he was in Punahou School, in the class of 1979, 12 years behind me, I was in the class of 1967. He was registered as Barry Soetoro, S-O-E-T-O-R-O, and he was registered as an Indonesian Muslim. Let's forget about that, and we'll go back to my background.
I was going to say, keep going with you. I want to hear about you. But yeah, that's pretty intense. Go on.
Let me warn you and your listeners. Rachael, are you familiar with stream of consciousness literature?
Yes, I am. In fact, I did a book when I was getting out of college, and it's in a couple people's collections. Noam Chomsky has one of them.
Well, Noam Chomsky. He's got a direct link to 9/11. But long story short, and you'll never get a short story from me, but you'll get me going all over the place because of stream of consciousness. It's how I think and speak. But from Punahou, I don't know how it happened. Well, actually, I do know how it happened. It never should have happened. I got an appointment to the Naval Academy The reason it did probably happen is because we had a very unpopular war in 66 and 67 when I was applying to all the service schools. And I got into the Naval Academy. I went there for 4 years. Now I'm going to drop another nasty name on you. John McCain. He was 13 years ahead of me. He's in the class 58. I was in the class 71. And, you know, he's often held up as some type of a war hero. Well, they got 3 of the letters right, ERO, but it's my well-informed expert opinion that he's a 0. And you're going to find me very refreshing because I'm not politically correct. I'm not politically inspired. I really have great disrespect for all the politicians. In today's news, did you see that Senator Al Franken of Minnesota's in a little hot water?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and the people can find that on the media, but you're going to find over the next 6 weeks that a great number of our congressmen and senators are going to be in a lot of hot water. And can I just go ahead and tell you what the central issue is, or do you want to?
No, please do. No, go. We've got all night. We got like 2 hours of this. So you just stream of consciousness it out and we'll get to the bottom of it. Go ahead.
Yes. My partner, and it's not partner like, you know, the new definition of partner.
I know. I saw your beautiful girlfriend or wife. I think it's your wife. I saw the picture of her.
Okay. Which picture did you see?
I saw a picture of you with a blonde woman, and it looked like a plane, like a jet that there's some sort of.
Yeah. Well, I'm smiling, and I'm smiling because that is not my wife. But I'm 68, and I'm a heterosexual male Caucasian. I think like that. My wife, and this goes right to your type of radio show. My wife is 52. She's from the United Kingdom, which means she's a British citizen. And because of my fairly high profile whistleblowing that's lethally accurate, she's been kept out of the U.S. for 12 months. From the 13th of December last year, her visa will most likely be approved and in her hand before Christmas. And right after Christmas, I'll be going over to England to rejoin her and bring her home. Now, she is a Brit. She loves where I live. I live in a little dinky town in Wisconsin called Plum City, population about 590. And you have quite a sense of humor, don't you?
I don't know. Maybe, perhaps, but go ahead. What do you think?
No. I have sort of a eccentric sense of humor, and I just love to talk directly to the microphone or the camera or both, and let the people that are trying to destroy our country, which the vast majority of the people that I besmirch with a lot of effect, most of them are in our government. And see, I don't know what demographic your listeners tend to be. I think you told me last night that they're sort of all over the place.
They're all over the place. And if they're like me, people that are just sort of coming around to the fact that, hey, something's going on and it's not what they're telling me. And they're from all age groups. And quite frankly, I try to stay away from political stuff because that's only used to divide people at this point in my book. So I'm trying to get people to just focus on real things that are going on that are verifiable outside of the scope of reality that the television or the internet is pushing people to believe.
Yeah, and I agree with you that politics is designed to, your choice of words was divide us. I think you should add a word, divide and conquer, because they want to keep us infighting and stupid, frankly. I would suggest that most of your listeners, if they can go to YouTube, if they want to find out the true history of the United States of America, not the revisionist history, not the history that we're taught in our public schools and our universities. The true history, there's an 8-minute song by Steppenwolf called Monster, Monster. If you get the version with the lyrics, you won't even have to look the lyrics up, but it talks about how people left England in 1620 to get away from two things, the monarch and the Vatican. And
this is the other thing too. I want to talk about the Vatican if you can, because that plays a role in my next book too. So this is going to be awesome. I can't wait to keep going, keep talking.
Yeah, the Vatican, a lot of people that are long-term Catholics and people that have been raised in the Catholic Church and like all the Catholic stuff, they might think I'm about ready to offend Catholicism. No, I'm not. I just want to educate even Catholics that the Jesuit branch of the Catholic Church, it has nothing to do with religion or spirituality. The Jesuit branch of the Catholic Church is a military and an intelligence branch. Mm-hmm. And now, first of all, I don't want to dictate or teach. Do you have any problem with that statement, or do you have any contrary opinion?
No, I don't. I'm here to have you talk. Okay. I really don't want to debate you so much as I want to hear what you have to say. And I take notes, and then I look at other people that are talking about the same thing. I had somebody on recently who was, can't even remember his name right now, but he started talking about the Black Pope and the Jesuits. And he was on with Cynthia McKinney. And Cynthia McKinney's like, well, wait a second, I'm Black, I'm Catholic, I've never heard about this Black Pope. And so he started telling us about the Jesuits.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So I want to hear from you too.
Okay, well, I was in, not that it matters, but I told you I was 68, I went to the Naval Academy, I served 4 years in the Navy, 6 in the Marine Corps, and 16 in the North Dakota Air National Guard, flying air defense interceptor fighter aircraft. The one you saw is an F-4D. It's on a pole up in Fargo. I was at the Fargo Air National Guard base from 77 to 93. And I know that it's the AFR's policy that we can touch on any subject. I just heard you say you. Well, I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to badmouth the Jesuits. Well, yeah, I am. I'm going to badmouth the Jesuits because they're not spiritual, they're liars. And they are really a big part of what is wrong with the United States that you just told me your listeners and a lot of people are coming around in increasing numbers and increasing fluency and saying to themselves or their spouse or their friends, something's terribly wrong. I wish I could figure out what it is. Well, you called the right guest. I hope.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, good. I'm going to tell it like it is, and I do love to be corrected. And but anyway, the Jesuits and the monarch of England, which right now is Queen Elizabeth II, she became the queen in 1953. But elements of the British monarchy and the Jesuits have been controlling the United States of America. And I've got 3 dates in my head, and I can argue all 3 of them. But I'm going to give you the one that's rock solid fact that everybody who's listening to your show right now can Google it while I speak and find out that I'm absolutely right. In 1871, there was an act passed in Washington, D.C., which I think prior to 1871, it was called Rome on the Potomac. But anyway, they passed the Organic Act of 1871. And you may know this. I hope you do. And if you don't, you're going to be stunned. But that was the day that we officially became a corporation, meaning the United States of America is not a sovereign nation. It's not. And no one can argue that. It's a corporation. Right. Now, do you think many of your listeners knew that?
I don't know. But all I know is I figured that out.
You did on your own?
Yeah, about three years ago. Well, I was a delegate for Ron Paul, and you're hanging around with the Ron Paul people, you're instantly hanging around with people who are off the beaten path. And so you hear all sorts of things. That's where I learned about chemtrails, and I learned about this corporation thing, sovereign citizens. And I was like, who are these people? Wait a second. I went from being a marketing person for a defense contractor and I wanted to just end the war from the ridiculousness that I saw happening at this defense contractor, to hanging out with these people that had just such diverse angles on this reality. And that's why I came to do Shadow Citizen.
Okay, well, it's funny because that's a play on words, because the shadow government, you're familiar with that?
Yes, I am. If there's a shadow government, I'm a shadow citizen.
Yeah. Well, do you know who my sister is yet?
I saw this and I was going to ask you about it. Kristen Marcy. And it seems like you have some sort of, I don't know. Are you guys fighting, or do you get along? Or it seems like you have a lot of respect for him, but it's almost a respect that's out of fear.
No, I'm not afraid of anybody. Let me clear up something. It's spiritual, and I'm not going to preach a sermon. I fear only one thing. I fear falling short of what God wants me to do to expose evil. On the 4th of December of 2006, that was a Monday, I said a little bitty prayer, and I'm not going to stay on this subject. I'm going to get off it because that's a good way to get people irritated too. But I said, at that time, I was a Boeing 747-400 captain for Northwest Airlines, which is today Delta Airlines. And I said, God, I'm about ready to fly this 747-400. And when I get on the airplane, I will be taking 403 people to Honolulu, from Minneapolis to Honolulu, so they can lay on the beach and I can lay on the beach. And I said, God, that doesn't seem very important to me. If you have something more important for me to do for your people in this world, I will do it no matter what it may be or no matter what it may cost me. Well, I would caution anyone who prays to be careful about what you pray for, because you might get cancer. That's
right.
Yes, and at 3:35 p.m. on Monday, the 4th of December of 06, I said that prayer. By 6 p.m. The same day, so 2 hours and 25 minutes later, my whole world turned upside down. And, you know, I could go down that rabbit hole and talk for 3 hours, but I'll just say this. I went from being a captain of a Boeing 747-400, one of the best airlines in the country, and it's the highest paying pilot job at that airline. And from that prayer on, I never turned a wheel at Northwest Airlines because I was awaiting training, and then I had a hernia. I don't like malingerers, and I appreciated my job. I wasn't a typical union thinker, and I had a hernia 5 or 7 years, and I saved it until I had, either I went on vacation or I got some type of a vacation, which I got because the hernia, I got the surgery performed when I was on about, I think I was slated to wait for Boeing 747-400 training until the 18th of December of 2006. So I talked to my aviation doctor and said, that hernia you've been telling me get fixed? Well, now's the time because I've got a couple weeks off. So I got the hernia fixed, and it was just about that time. In fact, I told you the prayer was Monday, the 4th of December. On Wednesday, the 6th of December of 2006, a gentleman called me whose name is David Hawkins. I've been around some very bright people, and I think I'm talking to a very bright person right now who's in this.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And are you talking about David Hawkins or me?
You. And
good.
Some things you can't hide, and there's really no reason to hide, but there's no reason to be other than humble either. For those people who've been given, greater study habits or greater intellect or greater body of knowledge or a greater hunger to learn, that's not anything to be ashamed of, because a lot of people, as you've mentioned once or twice, and I've already mentioned once or twice, a lot of people know there's something wrong. But on the one hand, they don't know what it is. They don't know how to find it. And on the other hand, once they start scratching the surface of the truth, they might want to turn around and not go any deeper. I've already told you, or maybe I haven't told you, but I meant to tell you. I've been involved in this for 11 years, and I've had the pleasure of going over to speak in England at a wonderful conference called The Alternative View, where they get people like me or like you that have a story to tell. And 2 years ago, in May of 2016, May of 2016, that's right. 2 years ago, I was asked by the host, he said, will you come over and speak at our conference? And I said, yes. And in fact, I almost said this to you earlier, but we didn't have time. And he said, well, what would you like to speak about? And I told the host, whose name is Ian R. Crane of the alternativeview.co.uk. I said, well, that's not the way I operate generally. I mean, I'm flexible, but rather than me pick a topic that I can talk about, why don't you Google my name and see what I do talk about and tell me what might be of greatest interest to your audience? He said, well, I think I've seen you quoted as saying that Hillary Clinton has a direct link to 9/11. I said, she absolutely does. And you just mentioned my sister's name, Christine Marcy. Back in December of 1988, my sister was in charge of the US Marshal Service, and she was a bureaucrat for 30 years. And I'm really sad to say, I'm not crying, my eyes aren't tearing up. But it's sad for anyone to say this about a member of their own family. My sister, from the day she first went to work for the federal government, 1969, until this very moment, she's been working against the United States of America, and she's been working with the deep state. She's been working in the shadow government. I'm going to make a character judgment. I'm well qualified to do that. I'm her only sibling, and our parents are dead. She is the most evil person I know in America, with the exception of one 90-year-old. I'm not going to mention the person's name, but a former president. But there's, people don't want to embrace the fact that evil might lurk. Evil might be real. Well, evil is real. And most people don't want to accept that. They don't want to embrace it. For anybody out there that has children or grandchildren, we need to understand what it is that's putting our country at risk. And I don't think we're going to be at risk much longer. There's some big things coming this month and next month. And, I'm not going to prognosticate. Everyone will see them this month and next month. But those things are basically the people that are truly running this country today. And I said truly, because from politics, you can't tell who's running this country.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say, there is a very qualified team running the country, and it may not. I'm going to use Trump as an example. There might be people behind the scenes that are actually running it, and he's playing his part willingly. But let's go back to facts. The gentleman that called me to the conference in 2016 said, "Well, I've seen you talk about your sister, Christine Marcy, and that led me to hearing what you have to say about Hillary Clinton and her direct connection to 9/11. I said, well, if that's what you'd like me to talk about, and this conversation was in January of 2016, and I was not going to speak until May of 2016. I said, I've got 4 months to prepare, but I could go on your stage right now and give you a PhD level education about Hillary Rodham Clinton's direct linkage to 9/11. And he said, well, good. I'll look forward to having you speak on that. I said, okay. And if anybody wants to see it, there is a YouTube out. And if anyone wanting to see what I said about Hillary Clinton and some other people that are directly involved in 9/11, most of whom are Americans, sadly. One of them is my sister. But if you go to YouTube and put in capital A, capital V 7, and that stands for Alternative Views 7. That's a conference, but it's capital A, capital V 7. And then you put in my name, FIELD, MCCONNELL. And then that'll probably bring you right to the 75-minute all over the world. I mean, we touched on a lot of subjects. But anyway, I did make the claim that Hillary Clinton has a direct link to 9/11, and everyone can go to YouTube and see it. AV7, Field McConnell, Hillary 9/11. It'll come up. And it's been out for years.
Okay, so Hillary has the direct link, not her husband, Bill?
No, Hillary.
Hillary. All right.
Hillary and my sister have the same lifestyle, and it's not heterosexual. And that's one of the reasons they know each other. And in both cases, they're married, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I'm not judging. I don't want to know your age. I never ask a female their age. Never. But I saw from your background that you were a defense contractor, or you were employed by them, and you've twice mentioned that, and you haven't mentioned who, and I'm not going to ask who, but no, I don't want to know.
If people want to know, they can go to my LinkedIn profile. It's right there.
Oh, no, I don't have time for LinkedIn. Like last night, I don't know what time it was, you emailed me and said, I'm so-and-so, and I know who you are, Rachael McIntosh, and I know we're on AFR. But you said, hey, I'd like to interview you. I'm going to give you a compliment. I hope it's taken as a compliment. But about 6 months or maybe 4 months ago, I told to the people that follow Abel Danger and the people, and we do radio shows 2 to 3 times a week, every week, always on Monday and Thursday. This week, because of our 11th anniversary, we did a special radio show today. And on Sundays, I do a completely different themed radio show. It's more about families, people, And when I say people, I'm not talking about Americans. Yes, I'm an American, and yes, I love America. You know what? Everyone in the world is equal. And if there's a little 5-year-old girl in Rwanda, or a 12-year-old boy in Ireland, a 90-year-old woman in Tokyo, we're all equal. None of us, I did not choose to be born male. I didn't choose to be born in Fort Worth, Texas. I didn't choose much of any of this thing. I just was born, and I've lived my life, and I have respect for everyone. Let me caveat that. I have respect for everyone that's not trying to hurt other people with no reason, just because they want to hurt people. And our United States military is a big part of that. I spent 26 years in the military, and I had a lot of fun. I did some very interesting things. I had the opportunity to fly the F-4 Phantom and the F-16. But it's my background from being at the Naval Academy, flying for the interceptors. And what interceptor means as opposed to fighter, they're the same type of aircraft. It's just their mission is North American air defense, identification and interception and destruction of any flying vehicle that doesn't belong in America. And fortunately for me, I never had to go shoot down a Russian bomber. And then on 9/11, now here we go. Are you hanging on tight?
I'm hanging on. I'm here.
Okay, I got 3 direct connections to 9/11, so let's just get that on the table.
All right.
Besides my sister and Hillary, using my what's that called? Intellectual property. In other words, my sister, when she was charged of the Marshal Service in December of 1988, she called me up and said, blah, blah, blah. They had a problem. They needed a solution. And I said, well, Chris, the solution to your problem is just get a couple of used airliners and have them droned. And she said, what's drone mean? I say, you leave all the original flight controls and all the cockpit the same, but you add another autopilot. And I'm going to say this real slowly and clearly because your listeners are going to want to go to YouTube and see this. The technology I explained to my sister, Christine Marcy, and she shared it with Hillary Rodham Clinton. It's called the BOEING, BOEING, uninterruptible autopilot. And I explained this to my sister. I said, all you got to do is you got to put a uninterruptible autopilot in any of these old used airliners. And I put her in touch with who she could get the airliners from at Northwest, because in December of '88, we were starting to get rid of the really old short 727s and also a certain version of the DC-9. I said, you're a government organization, being the U.S. Marshals Service. I said, they'll give you the airplanes. They give them away to schools. They give them away to a lot of different entities, but they'll certainly give you the airplanes. And I said, then all you got to do is for about $800,000 probably, which seems like a lot of money. Did I say 800? No. $300,000 for a fighter type aircraft. It might be a little bit more for an airliner, but it's not much. You just get a black box that's called an uninterruptible autopilot. You install it in the E&E compartment, which is electronic equipment. It's down below the cockpit of most airliners. Some of them have a trap door where you can go down there and get shocked if you're not careful, because there's a lot of electricity down there. But the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot, I would encourage your listeners who want to really come up to speed on 9/11, go see that. And now you said you were going to ask me about Malaysia 370. Well,
yeah.
Let me establish a little bit of credibility. And I'm not a blowhard. I'm not proud of what I'm doing. I'm not afraid of what I'm doing. I'm doing what I've been called to do. But when Malaysia 370 went missing on the 8th of March of 2014, that was the same day that we put out the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. When I say we, I often am given credit for doing things that I'm not capable of doing, but knowing that, what the information we're sitting on is huge. And I mean, I don't think that, the information we are sitting on, and I talk about all the time, although we've mastered other subjects, but the remote capture of airliners, I think it's fair to say that there's nobody in the world that has more fluency on this. So when Malaysia 370 was reported by the media to have gone missing on the 8th of March of 2014, which, by the way, it was never missing. It was tracked all the way. When it took off from Kuala Lumpur, it was tracked first of all, it took off to the northwest. It made a right turn to the northeast. Then it got on pretty much a due north course for Beijing, China. And when it got to a certain intersection, and when I throw out little, precise things, that's only because I'm wanting to hold myself accountable. Any of your listeners, if you Google MH370 plus BITOD, that's pronounced BITOD, BITOD, that's an intersection north and east of Kuala Lumpur. If you put in MH370, BITOD, BUAP, that's the Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot, and my name, you'll be up for days reading all the stuff. But anyway, we put out this it's only 5 minutes and 40 seconds. And I'm being real honest here. When I say we put it out, yeah, Abel Danger put it out. I had nothing to do with it. In fact, somebody called me and said, "Hey, Phil, that was a wonderful, that YouTube you put out about the BUAP, that's wonderful." I said, "What? I can't even spell YouTube, and I certainly can't put up a YouTube. Are you sure you're talking to the right guy?" Well, and yes, whoever told me this was an associate. He said, "Well, there can't be two Field McCONNELLs in the world." I said, "Yeah, fair point." And he said, "No, the YouTube is there. Go look at it." So I looked at it, and I knew immediately who'd done it. And he didn't do it because he wanted me to be blamed for it. But, what we're doing here is we're exposing the highest level evil in the world. And I'm going to go from little things like Malaysia 370, which is not little at all if your loved ones were on that airplane. But I'm telling everyone, and I've done this for years, literally, on the 8th of March of 2014, we told Malaysia, your airplane's not missing. It's on Diego Garcia, which is an island in the South Indian Ocean. And it was there. How did it get there? It was electronically, remotely hijacked, which it's sort of like these cars that most younger people drive that are built in 1996 or later. They're getting increasingly more obvious remote control features. And it's supposed to be really safe, like blind spot monitoring, sudden braking because it sees something you don't. And what it's, I drive older cars, by the way. I don't. I just as soon be in control of my own vehicle. We have a 9/11 truth guy in the Netherlands named Danny Joenko, and of course Princess Di died in a car wreck.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, both of those cars were tampered with. And see, and they can do that. They can, if people are buying new cars, go ahead, but learn what you're dealing with. There's a lot of safety features. Safely from home to school, or from school to the office, or the office to the grocery store, but those same features can be used against you. And I'll just drop that subject because I'm not an automotive engineer, but I sort of do own the Boeing Uninterruptible Autopilot. So we put out that YouTube, and when I say we, it's Abel, ABEL, Danger.org. Some people go ahead.
And I have two things. First off,
yes.
The Abel, that's spelled ABEL. Is that for Cain and Abel?
Yes, and Cain and Abel, one of them destroyed the other one, correct?
Correct, and that's why I was wondering about, was the name inspired by your sister?
Absolutely, you're very perceptive. Thank you. Thank you for expending the intellectual capital to figure things out. Yes, my sister and I don't wish for her to be dead. I'm pretty sure she would like me to be dead, and I guarantee you Hillary and Barack Obama wanted me dead. And those three people right there that I just mentioned, my sister Christine Marcy, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama, they are the three people that got the National Visa Center in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to block my wife from re-entering the U.S., but we've resolved that. She'll be back before New Year's. But we have been apart for a year. But it's not quite as bad as it sounds, because as a retired Delta guy, I can go, sometimes I ride and coach, but I usually, because I have the discretion of time and supposedly no schedule, well, except I work 29 hours a day every day of the week. But other than that, if I want to go over to London to spend time, I went in 1 month this summer. I actually was there part of 3 months because it was 5 weeks. I was just over there for 3 weeks in November. So, in their minds, they like to punish us and control us, which, pretty much most of the governments, well, like your listeners need to hear this. It doesn't matter what state you're in. Most of what you think is your government, including the courts and including the attorneys, these are all private corporations. And when I say the courts and the state offices are private corporations, they are. And they're all just franchises like Wisconsin, New Jersey, Texas, California. They're all franchises of the United States Corporation, which was created in 1871 when they wrote the Organic Act of 1871. But let's get back to Malaysia 370. I was called by Malaysia, an element of their government that I've never disclosed, and I'm never gonna. It'll be in a court case at some point. But the people who called me initially from Malaysia were elements of the government structure, very, very polite, very well educated, very motivated.
Yeah.
First, who is about my age, and he said, is this Field McCONNELL? I said, yes, it is. And he said, well, Mr. McCONNELL, did you put out a YouTube called BOEING Uninterruptible Autopilot? I'm taking a drink of water here, but I said, yes, my organization put that out. He says, would you be willing to come to Kuala Lumpur and explain that to us face to face? And I said, well, today's Saturday, the 22nd of March of 2014. I can travel any day. I could hop on an airplane tomorrow and fly to Amsterdam. I live near Minneapolis. I live in Wisconsin, but it's an hour to the airport. I said, it's no problem for me. I can get to Amsterdam, and then from there, since you're in Malaysia and we're talking about Malaysia Airlines system, MAS, I said, we can probably figure out some way for MAS to get me to Kuala Lumpur. He said, well, you can count on that. We've got it set up already. We're going to pay you to come down here, and we're going to pay you a first class seat, because we want to know if you really know what you're talking about, because if you do, you can help us. And if you're somebody that's making all this stuff, we'd like to detect that face to face. And I said, well, fine. I said, today's Saturday, the 22nd, I could leave tomorrow and go to Amsterdam and then connect to a Malaysia flight. And you'll never believe this. The Malaysia flight I connected to is MH3, which we'll get to later, because that's the one that went down in Donetsk, Ukraine, on July 17th of 2014. Right. So he said, oh, no, you moved too fast, which a lot of people say that. And for a 68-year-old guy that's not athletic, and I'm forced into a sedentary lifestyle because I'm either writing or speaking like I am now with you a lot of the time. Well, I said, well, I can travel anytime, and I've got nothing that I can't move off my schedule to accommodate you. So when you guys are ready for me to come talk, no big deal. I'll come talk. So it turned out that I left Minneapolis on April 15th. I went, as I mentioned, to Amsterdam. Then I got on Malaysia Flight 17 and went to Kuala Lumpur. The gentleman who was my sponsor, who had set up the travel and set up the speaking, he met me and took me to what I think, you live on the East Coast. I believe you'd probably call it a 4-star hotel. But it was a very nice hotel. Not too far from the airport, maybe a 20-minute drive in Kuala Lumpur. And he took me right up to the desk, the registration. And it was like maybe he thought I didn't know how to check into a hotel. Well, I was an airline pilot 31 years. But anyway, he was very gracious. He said, here's the guy from America. And do you have the key to his room? Yeah, here's his key. Okay, thank you. And then he turned at me like a father would turn to a son or a daughter, or like a colonel would turn to speak to a sergeant. He said, okay, we're going to have a busy day tomorrow, so I want you to go up to your room and have a really good night's sleep. And he was telling me this like at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I felt like saying to him, now I can be professional when it's necessary. It's not my nature. I felt like saying, you're telling an airline pilot to go to his room at 2 p.m.? But I didn't say that, because if he doesn't know what airline pilots are really like, I didn't want to pop his bubble. But so I minded my own business. The next day we met. We went to a beach location, and I could find it on a map of Malaysia, but it was about a 2-hour drive. And we stayed in a hotel on the beach where we could have private meetings, singular. It was an all-day meeting. As I recall, it was the Friday that preceded the 20th, whatever that would have been, the 18th, I'm guessing. And I met there with 4 individuals from different parts of the Malaysian government, and those 4 and myself were in a conference room, 1-on-4, for the next 8 hours. And we had a very cordial, and well, the conversation I had with them was very much like I'm having with you. They did most of the listening, and I did most of the talking, because those 4 individuals, they wanted to know what happened to their airplane, and they had reason to believe that I was credible with what I did know, and I do know exactly what happened to their airplane. I'm going to back up and say before I left, so in other words, the conversation on the 22nd of March turned into a departure on the 15th of April. For whatever reason, and I write a lot of fiction, and it sounds to me like the writing you do is fiction based on fact. Is that
exactly.
Well, that's exactly what I do. In fact, it's really funny that you're on your 4th book. I stopped writing my 4th book, which is called War Bride, when they wouldn't let and I'm in a war with the United States government. And I don't mean like, no, I'm holding them up. I'm exposing what they're doing wrong to all of us American people, black and yellow, red and white, straight, alternative lifestyle, male, female, geriatric, youth. We're all being abused by our government, but it's truly not the people that are elected that are doing the abusing, but I'll get back to that. We're going back now. For whatever reason, when I was writing fiction on Saturday, the 29th of March, I decided I had about 4 people that know me very well, and they really had my best interest at heart, and different conversations with different of these 3 or 4 people, they all said the same thing. I don't think you should go to Malaysia. And I said the same thing to all of the people. I said, why not? They said, well, you don't know if it's a trap or not. And I said,
well, that's what I was thinking too. Are they going to put you on a plane that's going to explode or disappear?
Well, that's what they like to do to whistleblowers, and I am a whistleblower. And I don't want to get up on my soapbox, but see, this all started with a prayer. And I asked God, don't you have something for me to do that's more important than flying a bunch of chubby people to Honolulu? And this is what he asked me to do, expose evil. And, 9/11 was my first exposure of something I regard as evil. Then we got John Benet. Then we got the 2 Malaysian airplanes, 370 and 17. But this year, when I was called over to the Aviate conference to speak, the very gracious host said, are you coming to speak again in May of 2017? I said, well, I would if you'd asked me, but you haven't asked me. He said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, can you come over and speak again in May? And I said, yes, sure. He said, what would you like to speak about? And I said, we had this discussion last year, and I want you to assign me something. But if you're truly asking me, he says, I'm stimulated. What would you like to talk about? I said, I'd like to eulogize a politician that everyone that's listening to this conversation, they all know who I was talking about, but I'm not going to name him, that person. I said, I'd like to eulogize this politician. And he said, but Ted, that politician isn't dead. I said, yeah, I know it's Ian, but it's not May yet. It's January. He may be dead by May, which that person did not die. So I haven't eulogized him yet.
I'm guessing already who this person is.
I think you probably know because I gave you one really big clue, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
The age?
Yeah.
Regardless of what capacity he served in, he's the oldest one that ever survived. In other words, for the job he had, everybody else that held that same job for some period in history died at an age younger to him. So now you're 100% sure who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So why don't you want to say his name?
Well, I'm perfectly happy to. Is that okay with you?
It's okay with me.
George H.W. Bush, I voted for him twice. I've voted for his son, whose IQ, by the way, is 124. What does that mean? Well, it's not a horribly high IQ. In fact, I'm going to ask you, Rachel, I don't know. So it's not like I'm leading you into a trap. But as far as Mensa or genius level IQs, do you have a rough barometer of what number that might start at?
Doesn't genius start at like 130?
Oh, maybe.
But I thought really impressive would be like 150.
Well, and once again, this is not a politically inspired thought, but our current president has an IQ of 157, I believe.
Really?
Yes, really. And but anyway, let's not go there. And the reason we don't want to go there is there's a lot of places we could go everywhere. But I mentioned earlier that it's my opinion, and this is where some people are going to roll their eyeballs. It's my opinion that some people within the Defense Department that are very senior officers absolutely put their foot down and said, this country cannot survive under Hillary Clinton. We got to get somebody in that is willing to defend America and fix America. And that's, and I'm going one step further because we all know who the president is. But I think that there's a 4-star military person. Well, you like me to name names, don't you?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is General Joseph Dunford. He grew up in Boston, Massachusetts area. He's a infantry officer in the Marine Corps. He got commissioned in 1977. So 40 years ago, he put on a uniform. And professional people in the military, and believe me, well, I was one. I was a lot of fun to hang around with, don't get me wrong. But when it came time to fly the airplane, I was extremely professional. And our job was to respond day or night, no matter what the weather is. And you can usually went out with 2 airplanes, but if the other guy's airplane broke, you're on your own. Doesn't matter how old you are. When I started flying interceptors, I was 27 and I flew until I was 43. But you had a lot of responsibility. Whether you're a man or a woman, you might be out there in the dead of night in really horrendous weather, and you might come face to face with an airplane that needs to be destroyed. No problem, because you usually are in radio contact and you have a brief coded conversation and then you destroy the airplane if necessary. I have shot down full-scale airplanes, but they were drones like F-102, F-100. But on 9/11, everyone said that the military had failed to protect America. That is not right. The military was prevented from protecting America, and I could do a 6-hour show on how they did it. But right. Let's not go there. We got to get back to Malaysia. On the 29th of March, before I left on the 15th of April, I thought, for these people that are trying to protect me from myself and bad judgment, which wasn't ever going to work because I'd already given them my verbal commitment that I'd come over. And I can update my thinking. I can moderate my opinion, but I'm old enough and old-fashioned enough. My word's my bond. And I told you last night that I'll be here. And the guy, and I'm not being disrespectful, but the man, I think it's Danny Romero. Yes, and he called me a couple times, and I could see it because I was doing my own live radio, which was quite interesting today. But anyway, I was way ahead of schedule, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know if he can count on me. And I understand when you're a producer, you really want to be sure that this guest is going to be there. So anyway, back when I was thinking about Malaysia, I decided since some people were worried about me, I'd go ahead and give myself an odd form of insurance. So I wrote in fiction. So in other words, I'm writing a chapter of a book. And in fiction, I mentioned that I'd been approached by the government of Malaysia, and they wanted me to come explain to them what happened to Malaysia 370. So I put I'm going to paraphrase a paragraph because I don't dwell on these things, but I basically said in fiction, and in fact it worked, but I said, I'm going to come down there and talk to you guys at Kuala Lumpur. I'm going to talk to the 4 members of the government. I'm going to talk to the experts from Malaysian Airline System, that's MAS, and their call sign is MH. So if you see MH370, you know it's Malaysian Airline System, Flight 370. I said, I'm going to come talk to you. Now, keep in mind, this is literature and it's fiction. I said, but I'm going to tell you exactly what the 2 illegal modifications to your aircraft were that allowed it to be taken off course and remotely flown to a safe landing at Diego Garcia. But then it's going to be incumbent on you two, the government of Malaysia and Malaysian Airline System. I'm going to tell you how your airplane was taken. And here comes the really creepy part. You're going to love this because I've already made your personality, and you're going to thrive on this. But, okay. Yeah, I said to them in fiction, in literature, I said, and when I tell you how your airplane was taken, it's going to be incumbent on you 2 entities, the experts at the airline and the government. You're going to need to share this with world media. And if you don't, I'm going to say this real clearly, if you do not expose how your aircraft was taken, you should expect to have a second explosive event no later than 1900 hours, which is 7 p.m. local, no matter what time zone you're in. 1900 is 7 p.m. I said, you should expect to have a second explosive event no later than 1900 on the 17th of July of 2014. Now, I made this comment on March 29th. Now, I'm going to say it real slowly again. I know you're a good listener. I 115% know that. I told them their next airplane was going to go down before 7 p.m. on the 17th of July of 2014. Do you have any idea what day Malaysia 17 went down?
That very day?
Yes, at 5:35 p.m. Now, there's some people that hear this that think, oh, yeah, right, BS. Well, you can Google it all. I mean, you can Google my statement. It's time-stamped of when I wrote that. You can check when Malaysia 17 went down just in the vicinity of Donetsk, Ukraine. But no, that's pretty creepy. I mean, and
now, can I ask you a question? How did you come up with that idea that this would happen within that time frame?
I really didn't. I was trying to put pressure on them because I was not afraid to go talk to them. But if they were on the bad side, because you don't know until you meet these people, if I were to tell them everything that truly happened, then they could get the information they want, and good or bad. If they're bad, they might want me to be silenced. So I wanted to put them over a barrel. So I wanted to put in writing that they should expect a second explosive event by such and such a date. Now, remember, I wrote that on the 29th of March. So I'm going to tell you how it looks like I did it, and then I'm going to tell you the truth. And the truth is that I was inspired. And some of your people will know what inspired means, some won't. It doesn't matter. But to make it simple for everybody, I was sitting at my desk on my keyboard writing fiction, and I wanted to look for a juicy date. That could be taken a lot of ways, can't it? I wanted to look for a date that made sense. And so I looked through April, and I say, April 1st is April Fool's Day. No, that's too cheesy. April 15th is tax day. No, that's too American. I wanted to be internationally balanced. I looked through, after April comes May, I looked at May Day. I looked at my father's birthday, which is May 11. He was deceased at that time, but, honor your father, that type of stuff. Then I looked Mother's Day, and I thought, no, can't do that because the mothers of some people are going to lose their children on that day. If that day comes, if that happens, which it did. Then I looked at June, and there's D-Day, which is June 6th, and there's Flag Day, which I think is June 14th. Then there's Father's Day, and for the same reason, no, we don't. I had no idea when it was going to come down, but I wanted to give them an open estimate. So I had the protection of that they had to wait and see what was going to happen before they'd have a better clue as to who I really am. And I really am Field McCONNELL. I really am nothing special. It's just I'm in a unique position. I've been put in this position by God, and he's asked me to expose evil. So I turned the page to July, and July 4th, can't do that because that is too American. And then I looked out at my calendar, and there was a dinner date for 40 people at a local restaurant. And for the stimulation and titillation of your audience, if they go to YouTube and look up vino, which is wine, vinointhevalley.com. It's a wonderful outdoor, beautiful setting. It's 8 miles from my house. It's an outdoor Italian restaurant where most of us locals don't go there for the food. We go there for the ambiance. It's just beautiful. And if any of you guys go to vinointhevalley.com, look for the YouTube of a black presidential limousine, a Cadillac, which looks a lot like Bill Clinton's presidential limousine. But because of the nature of what I do.
All right, we're going to have to go to a break here. This is fascinating. And we're going to come back with Field McCONNELL. We're going to talk about who that blonde woman was, the picture I saw with him, because we still haven't covered that. We're going to talk more about 9/11 and his sister, Kristen. Okay, we're on our second hour now of this week's Shadow Citizen. We're talking to Field McCONNELL of abeldanger.org. And the first hour, if you were with us, we talked extensively about a missing flight from Malaysia Airlines. And the reason that happened is because I worked at a place and we had a contract going. And I mentioned this in my book, Little Yellow Stickies, about this Malaysia contract. And the weirdest thing actually happened after I left that place, that these flights started disappearing. And that's when I got really scared. And that's why I wanted to talk about that. But we are going to circle back and talk with Field McCONNELL about his sister, Kristen Marcy, and how it connects to 9/11. But yeah, so let's talk about this Kristen Marcy thing, because I've kind of come across a few weird things online about her showing up in the newspaper some date talking about, it was linked to an Urban Dictionary and what she had said, and it seemed like it was a very out of place. I wish I could say when this interview happened. It was very out of place comment she made about being basically screwed over. But it's linked to an Urban Dictionary, and it meant something else. Was
the word Mendenhall in it?
Yes.
Okay, she was being interviewed. She's a complete snob, but that's not, there's a lot of snobs. But she's a snob who's evil, and she also, she's always had a thirst, a lust for power. And, I don't tell me your age or I'm going to hang up. I don't want to know your age. But there's women roughly my wife's age, Hillary, not my wife's age, she's young, she's only 52. No, I'm 68, my sister's 70, Hillary's 70, I think. But that generation of women, they were told by people like Gloria Steinem, and they were told by a bunch of men, they were lied to by everybody saying, you guys are being held back based on gender, and there's a glass ceiling. So that just irritated people like my sister and Hillary, and they determined that they were going to bust through the glass ceiling no matter what. But their motivation was not gender equality. Their motivation was the abuse of power. Yeah, my sister, I'm going to spell her name and pronounce it correctly so everybody can Google it. Christine, Kristine. Her last name's Marcy, Marcy. When she got out of high school a year early because they couldn't teach her anything. She was too good a student, and they thought they were wasting a year. And they told my parents, you send her to college a year early. We're not helping her. So she went to college a year early. Then she turned around and got through a 4-year college degree in 3 years. Not for a good reason. She did work. She is very intelligent. I have to be fair and balanced. She did work exceedingly hard as a student, but her motivation to get through the 4-year bachelor's degree in French in 3 years was she had been going to school in Washington, D.C., and she'd been under the influence of some of these people at Georgetown University. And for the people that don't know Georgetown, other than the fact that The Exorcist movie with Linda Blair was filmed there, and the Georgetown basketball team, is generally doing well. What they don't know is the Georgetown University is today, and has been for a long, long time, the place where typically the senior Jesuit in the United States of America hangs around. And the Georgetown University, yes, academically and some of the sports, it's got a very good reputation, but most people don't really know what Georgetown's all about. But my sister went back, she took her bachelor's degree that she got in Hawaii, because my parents could smell something wrong with my sister. I don't mean olfactory. There was something in his behavior that they didn't like. So they got her out of D.C. when my father was the Air Force guy. When we got stationed in Hawaii and I went to Puno school, she was forced by my parents to go to Hawaii, and the biggest school in Hawaii that's public, of course, is University of Hawaii. So she went up there and finished off a degree in French. And then she went to Georgetown. And boy, is this an aptly named curriculum. She got a master's in foreign service. Well, she's mastered it all right. She's been working against the United States of America since 1969. But then, and this is where you would have heard Mendenhall, then she went to law school at George Washington University. And I think she went back to work a day or two after delivering one of her 2 children. And, people, there's men that are just full of themselves because they're men. There's women that are full of themselves because they're women. I didn't pick to be a male or a female, so I'm just happy I'm alive. But my sister is being interviewed by some equally snobby feminist. And no offense, if you're a feminist, I didn't say you're a problem, but the snobby ones, nobody likes snobs of any stripe. The person was really thriving on making her seem like a superhero because she had a child. And by the way, I have.
Oh, is this is the woman named Judith Mann? Was she the interview that we're talking about where she said Mendenhall? Because I took notes when I was writing everything down. I have the Judith Mendenhall interview with Christine Marcy, 1979, and the interview is called "Now You Can Be Both."
Aha, you're absolutely right. You do your research, don't you?
That's right. Yes, I do.
Well, here's what, do you know what a Mendenhall baby is?
No, that's why I wanted to ask, because it was somehow linked to the Urban Dictionary, and I was like, wait a second, this is
really creepy. So for your listeners, if some of you have stomachs that are easily turned, I take about a 3-minute break here, and so you tell me when to start talking about it.
Go right ahead. Go.
Okay, a Mendenhall baby is conceived when the male participating in the conception attacks, and that's the right word, attacks a female from behind. Now, I think we're all adults, and we know if you're behind or in front, it's still item A going into item B, but it's meant to humiliate the female. And it would typically not be a female's husband or boyfriend, okay? It's a violent act. It's meant to humiliate you because at the end of the act, I really do hate talking about this because it's so evil, but at the end of the act, the woman's laying face down on whatever she's laying face down on, and she's totally humiliated by what's just been forced upon her. And my heart goes out to women. And then let me just say this. I have a very, very high regard and great respect for women, and even more so for mothers. I think being a mother is the most important job in the world, and I think even ladies that do not have children, they do have sort of maternal instincts and traits of being caregivers and nurturers. But yeah, that not only struck you as odd that this woman interviewer, Judith Mann, would say something about a Mendenhall's baby, but it's got my very high IQ academic partner, David Hawkins. He would love to know who the perpetrator was, and
why did they bring this up? This name in this article? It was very interesting.
Yeah, I'm telling you, these people are all creeps. They're all evil, and what they're basically suggesting is that baby that was born in 1979, that helps me because she had 2 daughters, one born in 76, one born in 79. And I just am not going to say that lady's name. She's 79, so she's coming up on 40 years old. And people can find out if they're good at Googling. But, it's sort of like Chelsea Clinton. What's it like being Chelsea Clinton going around having everybody know that your father is Webster Hubble? I mean, you can never get comfortable with that.
Maybe you should expand on that because maybe everybody doesn't know that.
Oh, all you have to do is Google Chelsea Clinton plus Webster Hubble. Mm-hmm. Webster Hubble was not a very attractive man, but he worked with Hillary in the law profession. I believe I believe they might have worked together at Rose Law in Little Rock, Arkansas. But by the time Bill and Hillary got to the White House, Webster Hubble had a position in the federal government. And that brings us back to 9/11, because you said, well, didn't Bill have a part of that? Yeah, Bill did have a part of it. And Webster
did.
And Condoleezza Rice and Al Gore. But the 4 people other than Hillary just were bit players. I mean, they were doing aggressively the wrong thing, but they were nowhere near as powerful or as connected to the events of 9/11 as Hillary was. But as far as go ahead.
I want to ask, because in the last hour, you basically told us you called your sister, or your sister called you, and you outlined how 9/11 should go down. I guess you were hypothetically telling her, like, oh, this could go down like this. Next thing you know, if I'm understanding, your sister took this information over to Hillary Clinton.
Yes, they did.
Okay. And then
Well, see, and I recognized it because when 9/11 occurred, I was interviewed, not because I'm smart, not because I'm full of myself. I was living near Fargo, North Dakota, and everybody in Fargo that was in the media knew that I was retired from the Air National Guard, where I at one point was held in high regard. Everyone knew that of all the Northwest pilots in Fargo, I was the senior one. There were other retired pilots that were senior to me, but as of 2001, there was no other, and there were about 40 Northwest pilots living in Fargo. So I got a call on the morning of 9/11, and the Fargo Forum, which is a Pulitzer, I hate pronouncing that, but it is Pulitzer. It's a Pulitzer Prize daily newspaper, and they have a very good reputation. I got a call from one of their writers, and he identified himself, and just to show you I can recall details, the guy's name was Tom Pantera, Pantera. And he said, I'm Tom Pantera from the Forum. Do you know who I am? And I said, yes, I do. What can I do for you, Tom? He said, well, 9/11 went down this morning, and you obviously are aware of what's been going on. And he said, we know of your background flying interceptor aircraft and airliners, and we're wondering if you could find time for us to interview you live at your home today. And long story short, it ended up where he and a cameraman came out to my rural farm, and we did the interview with me leaning against the pickup truck and them asking me questions. But here's the juicy part for you. You can find the picture of me on the front page of the Fargo Forum on 9/12/01, and there's 4 pictures on the front page of the paper that day. 3 of them are humans. There's George Bush, Osama bin Laden, and me. Then there's the carnage in New York City, and the headline was, now this is really good, our nation saw evil. That's not true. They had the word backwards. Our nation was evil. Elements of the United States government, including my sister, Christine Marcy, who is a career bureaucrat, Hillary Clinton, John McCain, the Bushes, plural. Let me stop right there. Here's something your listeners can't know, and you may not know it either, but your listeners and you, probably all of you, understand that on the morning of 9/11, President George W. Bush was in Sarasota, Florida, reading a story to some elementary school children.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any idea? And I don't think, you can surprise me, but I don't think you would know this. But do you think your listeners would believe me if I told them that George H.W. Bush was in the White House on the morning of 9/11 because he slept there on the evening of 9/10? Have you ever heard this before?
So wait, he wasn't reading the book?
No.
The kids? That wasn't him.
No, baby Bush was reading the book down in Florida.
Right.
George H.W. Bush was in the White House the night before 9/11.
Really?
Yes, really. And see, this is my issue with the mainstream media. They're all bought and paid for by roughly 4 to 5 families, one of them being Rupert Murdoch, and they're not allowed to tell the truth. Well, I wonder why all these journalists keep their jobs, and it has to be ego and money, although I see Matt Lauer's no longer doing what he used to do. Mm-hmm. And I think Al Franken's just about ready to, of course, he's worse than the media. He's a political liar. No, George H.W. Bush was in the White House the morning of 9/11 simply because he'd slept there the evening of the 10th of September. I'm going to tell you something now that you'll consider it. You're not going to buy it outright right now. And most of your listeners are going to say, okay, I think I can turn this off now. George H.W. Bush made about $1 trillion because of the 9/11 event. And I'll just leave that there because that's the type of thing that a lot of people don't want to believe. It's true. But anyway.
Wait a second. If he made $1 trillion, why would he still hang out here in America?
Why would he?
Just hang out. Go somewhere else.
Well, they all could be forced to go somewhere else. Do you know that a lot of these guilty politicians probably cannot get out of this country right now. And I'm speculating, but I do have a fair amount of experience with customs because I've been dealing with customs.
Because your wife.
Yeah, because of my wife. And it is sort of funny because they think they can abuse everybody. And every once in a while, they find somebody that is going to abuse them right back. But no, I believe there's certain names, and I'm not going to name a Bush because I've already named two. But I would say Hillary Clinton, my sister, and John McCain. If any one of those three tried to go someplace like Dubai and the United Arab Emirates where they don't extradite to the U.S., or to where they already own about 600,000. Now I'm talking about the name I wasn't going to mention. There's some retired presidents that have a retreat down in Paraguay that's approximately 600,000 acres. But you can't get from A to B because customs won't let you out of the country. I'm going to turn around now and tell you something really good about another country. Ireland has just come up with a policy about 6 weeks ago where if you're an Irish citizen and you're a pedophile and it looks from your reservation like you're going to Thailand or Philippines, fill in the dots, they take your passport. They will not allow Irish citizens to travel abroad for sex tourism. And so if you're a known pedophile, an Irish citizen, they grab your passport and say, go back home. You're not traveling. They're also reluctant to let visitors like me. If I were a U.S. citizen, but I was known to be a pedophile, they wouldn't let me in Ireland. And I really respect Ireland for that because where the rubber meets the road, they are protecting children. And if Ireland can do it, and there might be one other country that's about ready to do it, but I feel very confident in saying this, that you're going to see a lot of activity involving pedophiles, during the race. Well, today is the 6th. By the way, happy Pearl Harbor Day tomorrow. But you're going to see a lot of pedophile events this month and in January. Because
so that Pizzagate stuff that was going on during the election,
yes,
was that more hyped up to freak people out so that would vote for Trump, or was it actually a real thing, or was it?
But I'm going to blow you out of the water with this, and I'm going to say it slowly. On the 21st of August of 2014, I had the repugnant duty of being on a jury. So I had to go in as a potential jurist, and you go through the selection process. It's called jury duty. Right. And so I was wasting my time, being considered as a juror. And unfortunately, I got selected. I was one of the 12 in the box. But the judge said, before I release the alternate jurors, do any of you 12 in the jury box have a personal relationship with pedophilia? And I raised my hand, and this judge looked at his cheat sheet so he could see the guy sitting at the left end of the front row was McConnell. He said, Mr. McConnell, are you telling me that you have a personal relationship with pedophilia? And I said, Judge, I didn't say Your Honor, because I don't honor these people. I said, yes, Judge. My sister and Hillary Clinton run the biggest net-centric pedophile network in the world. I said, not in the United States of America, in the world. But to address your question, Pedogate is the world network, and Pizzagate is the U.S. network. Now, keep in mind, I was under oath. I was in the jury box. And I told the judge right to his face that my own sister runs the biggest pedophile network. In other words, you want a 3-year-old blonde boy? Yeah, we can get you one. You want a 7-year-old Mexican girl? Yeah, we can get you one. Just place your order. We'll get it. If you have a particular child you want, and I'm going right now to Maddie McCann. Do you remember Maddie McCann?
No.
Yeah, she was taken in Portugal when she was very young. And the two people...
her parents, they were in a hotel room, and they left the kid in the hotel room. Is that the one?
Yes, it's a UK English doctor and his wife who's also...
and the next thing you know, they wrote a book about it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
and
okay.
It's never been solved. I'm going to solve it for you right now. You ready?
Yeah, they left. Go ahead.
The two Podesta brothers were in that town in Portugal that night, and it is alleged, and that's me. I'm saying it's alleged. I'm not Field McConnell saying it's a fact, but it is alleged that the Podesta brothers were involved in the kidnapping of Maddie McCann, not for their own use, or, the truth is abuse, but for a very senior politician in Brussels, which is in Belgium. But the law enforcement got activated so quickly and so powerfully that even though the media will tell you it's never been solved, they had a pretty good idea how she got from Portugal to Brussels and exactly who had designs on her. I don't like to say those other words.
Yeah.
And the coward that was going to do this realized if he was ever physically in the same place as that little girl, Maddie McCann, that his goose was going to be cooked. And so these guys are all cowards. Obama, coward. Hillary Clinton, coward. John McCain, Mitch McConnell, they're all cowards. A lot of them have alternative lifestyles. And at the end of this show, when you get to the last 5 minutes, I'm going to say a blockbuster that.
Oh, good. Wait till the last 5 minutes. Keep everybody hanging. You know how this works on radio. You know how it works.
Yeah, and I'll give you something really good in the last 5 minutes, but I'll also give the opportunity for people out there that their heart's breaking right now to think about how evil these politicians around the world are, that they would have 25 million kids around the world go missing every year. And so very often it's the very organizations that are supposed to protect the kids that's not true. In fact, I think there's a council here in the United States called the National Center for Endangered and Missing Children.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my sister's related to that too. There's a woman.
Wait a second. How did your sister how do you know that your sister got involved with all this? It doesn't I can't imagine somebody coming to Thanksgiving dinner being like, yeah, I got a new job where I'm a madam and I hook people up with the kids. And I mean, how did you figure this out?
Frankly, I did not. The smart guy I worked with did. He's just, if you took that guy over there in England, who's that wonderful detective? Oh yeah, Sherlock Holmes. Well, the guy that I work with, he's 74 years old and he's got about a 200 IQ. And he grew up on Sherlock Holmes books, reading books, not going to movies.
And this is Mr. Hawkins, right?
Yeah, David Hawkins. And he'd make a wonderful guest for you. And his behavior is completely different than mine. He seems very erudite and very calm. And listeners love his voice because he hadn't lived in the United Kingdom since probably the mid-90s, but he grew up there, and he's got a wonderful British accent for people who like British people. And I'm married to one, so I like British people. I hate their government. But I hate our government too, so let me be fair. Once again, now we're back to who controls the U.S. The United Kingdom controls the U.S. Just Google it, folks. Organic Act of 1871. We are not now, nor have we been for a long, long time, a sovereign country. We are slaves. In fact, a wonderful lady writer named Anna von Reitz. Are you familiar with her?
No, I don't think so.
She's a judge and a legal scholar. She's about, if I'm 68, she's got to be 29, of course, because nobody's over 29. But she's a great grandmother. I'm saying she probably is 63 or 64. She's regarded very highly by most people. She's attacked by others. But she just did a 4-interview series with a broadcaster down in Texas, or she's into it. But there's 4 interviews where the title of, and she's really educated when it comes to the history of the law. It's called Enslaved Nation. We are all we are all slaves to debt. And I didn't say to death. We are all slaves to debt, DEBT. And I'm going to blow you out of the water with a very very objective statement. If I told you that the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, was a private corporation, would you believe me?
Now I do. Yes, I do.
Good.
Because, I saw that movie, American Freedom to Fascism. But of course, after that movie came out, it was like the next year or something, they passed a new law that it really is, you do have to pay taxes.
That's not academically right. In fact,
good.
No. You don't have. You can hear people at the IRS, they'll tell you all the time that it's a voluntary tax system. Okay, that's true.
Okay.
It's voluntary. But none of your listeners, unless they're, I was going to say bad lawyers, but that's redundant. If they're not lawyers or bankers or senior people at the IRS, very few American taxpayers know at which point they volunteered. In fact, I'll put you on the spot. Do you know at which point you volunteered to pay tax?
Was it when my parents got me a Social Security number?
No, but that's a good guess because the birth certificate that your mother signed, not your father, but your mother, that's traded on financial markets where you're the collateral.
I've heard of that one. I checked my worth out. It was like not that darn much. I was like, God damn, I should be worth much more than this.
Well, you're worth much more to the system. But yeah, as long as the point at which a taxpayer volunteers to be a slave to the IRS is the very moment they sign their very first 1040, which is the form where you report your taxes and then you sign it and date it. That signature on the first 1040, they interpret that, according to statute law, that you just volunteered, and therefore you have to, once you volunteer, you're trapped. Well, you're not trapped. And I'll provide this to you after we go off the air. But I have a YouTube out there where I went through the process of telling the IRS I was revoking my election to pay taxes. And now I'm going to start sounding like I'm a tax dodger. No, I'm not. We're living in a country that's corporation. Corporation can't deal with private citizens. Corporations can only deal with corporations. If you check the history of corporations, it's my recall, and I'm not accurate on this, but I don't think corporations were allowed in the United States of America until probably after the Civil War, somewhere between 1865 and 1880. But corporations are these great conglomerates. And I asked you if you would believe that the IRS was a corporation, and you said yes. So I'm going to coach you a little. I'm going to say, when I ask you this next question, give me the same answer. If I told you the American Bar Association, which is all the lawyers and attorneys, if I told you that the American Bar Association was a private corporation, would you believe me?
Now I do, yes.
Okay, now here comes the really good stuff. They both are subservient to
the Queen. Is it to the Queen?
Oh, yes, it is. Ultimately, it is. Ultimately, but here's how. And you can Google this. This is a real easy one. I think you should write it down, but you'll probably
I'm writing everything you say down because I always go afterwards and I make a list of notes underneath my YouTube and all the videos that I post. And I always put extra links underneath if people want to research stuff. So I take I'm copious note taker.
Oh, good for
so
you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
For
so
you.
Tell me what I'm going to write down.
Both the IRS and the attorneys, which is ABA, American Bar Association is a corporation. IRS is a corporation. They're both owned by another corporation, which is headquartered in Chicago, Northern Trust. Have you ever heard that name?
Yes, I have. And who was I talking to? It wasn't Catherine Austin Fitts, was it?
Yeah, it probably was. I mean,
maybe it was. It was either her or Charles Ortel.
Well, he'd know it too. See, the word's getting out. And
because I'm calling up these people. I'm just like, what are you talking about? And I want to know what they're talking about because I feel like it's a piece of a puzzle that fits into stuff other people are talking about. And that's really what I'm hoping to figure out with this show. And everybody else can listen as we put these pieces of the puzzle together.
Well, you've just mentioned two very good sources, Charles Ortel and Catherine Austin Fitts. They both do really good work. But see, it's a lot easier than people think at first because the truth is the truth. And the truth can be discovered, but you're not going to discover the truth if you're educated by a public school, a public university, if you're educated by the TV, if you think the most important thing to do is go to the 76ers game when they play the Celtics. I mean, these are all diversions, and they're intentional diversions. Oh, by the way, little bright news. And this NFL don't stand up for the anthem?
Yeah.
I think today was the day that the first NFL team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, have filed for Chapter 11 protection.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not anti-football. And by the way, I was never an athlete. Never. I'm uncoordinated. I didn't intentionally not do things. I think it's probably my cardiopulmonary function, my ability to breathe if I'm running. Yeah, I'm not built for speed. I'm not built for, I look normal. I'm not sure I walk normal, but, I never watch me walk. I'm the guy doing it. But, I used to feel bad because I wasn't an athlete, just like the girls at that age feel bad because they're not a cheerleader, or at least on the pep squad. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I wasn't an athlete because I'm really in pretty good health at age 68. I don't have any broken bones. I don't have any joints that are problems. There's people right now listening to you that don't want to hear this kind of stuff. Say, yeah, you got a fine body, but your mind is mush. Well, believe it if you want. But no, yet the Northern Trust is actually a multinational, meaning different countries. It's a multinational corporation. So, and when you said the Queen, yeah, it goes back to England and it goes back to the Jesuits at the Vatican. And I think this is the second time in this show I've said that if people really want on their own to get an 8-minute lecture that's bulletproof on the history of the United States of America, and it comes from an odd source, Steppenwolf, which was a rock band in the 60s. But the guy, I think John Kay wrote it. He was sort of the creative genius at Steppenwolf. Born to Be Wild's their most favorite song, Magic Carpet.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
The name is Monster, and it talks about people wanted to get away from the crown, which means the monarch of England, and they want to get away from the Vatican. And I just want to reiterate for the Catholic people, the Vatican is not the source of evil. The Jesuit branch of the Vatican is. And of course, evil is a subjective term. Many of your listeners don't want to even embrace the possibility that a supposed church group could be evil. Well, they are evil, but you don't have to do anything other than Google the Jesuit oath. If someone reads the Jesuit oath, you'll see it. It's not me talking. It's true history. Having said that, we used to say the oath of allegiance, pledge allegiance. My age people did that, and people are trying to get away from, taking an oath to America, which, as I've told you now the third time, we're a corporation, not a sovereign country. But our society and our culture has gone downhill so fast that a lot of people older than me, I'm not sure, 68 sounds old if you're 30.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, but it's true.
Oh, I know it's true because I used to look at 68 or 70 or 85-year-old people, and I think, it must be awful being that old. I'll tell you what, I do have major challenges because I've got elements of our government that do not appreciate my knowledge level or my ability to articulate it so that a high school sophomore with a B- average can pick up what I'm laying down. But our culture, and I'm saving this for the last 5 minutes, I'm going to give you the sub-level. The number 2 thing that holds our shadow government together is pedophilia. And pedophilia is pervasive in the Congress and the Senates. Everyone refers to Joe Biden with an adjective before Joe Biden. Do you know what adjective they use when they're talking about Joe Biden?
No.
Creepy.
Oh, creepy. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because when he goes to functions where the Secret Service and other law enforcement people might be there to protect, the dignitaries. A lot of the Secret Service type people or the Capitol Police, when they'd go to some of these functions, they would usher the women away from him. And sad to say, younger girls. When I say younger, I mean younger than 18.
Like 12-year-olds. I've seen the pictures on Facebook and stuff on social media. They always picture Joe Biden hugging or has the hands on the shoulder of a girl or something, almost like keeping her in his clutches. I've seen those pictures.
Yeah, I'm a heterosexual, just like him. But some things float and some things don't. And I've got 4 daughters. If Joe Biden or anybody else touched one of my daughters in a way that they didn't want to be touched, at the very least, they'd be picking up some broken fingers.
Right.
I say, you're not touching any female with those fingers. Here, I'll hand them back to you. I just broke them off. And I'm not a violent person, but, women and girls need to be protected from men who are monsters. And a lot of the people in our government, we just, for the third time, I'm talking about Al Franken. Now, he's not getting in trouble, I don't think. I haven't read it. I haven't had time to read today. But I think he's getting in trouble for a statement that connected Jewish people with 9/11.
Really? It's about that with him? I had no idea. I knew he was in trouble, but I didn't know it was about 9/11.
Well, no, he's in trouble.
He's got all sorts of stuff to get in trouble with.
Well, I mean, what kind of a state gets a Saturday Night Live comedian that used to talk about because I'm smart enough, because I'm good enough looking, and doggone it, people like me. No, the people don't like you, Franklin. You know, go back to Minnesota. There's a lot of, well, I live in Wisconsin, but I came from Minnesota. And, you know, we elect a bunch of morons.
Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well, I think the other thing, too, is when people go to the voting booth and they recognize a name, they feel smart.
Yeah.
And so they vote. They're like, oh, I know this person's name. I'm voting for him.
The only reason I voted last time, and I didn't vote for everything on the slate, I voted for president. But the only reason I voted at all, because I know what a sham elections are, and that's a true statement. Presidents typically are selected, not elected. And if that's shocking people.
No, I agree with you on that. This past election, my people that have listened to my show before, I've mentioned it. I try not to dwell on it. But the last election for president, I went in, I voted for all the local, you know, the referendums, questions, stuff that was on for the local people. And when it came to president of the United States, I just wrote in, I do not consent.
Good for you.
Because I really felt like they were setting us up.
Oh, they are. They did. This might be a time, and my mental jury is out, but we very may well see some dramatic positive changes in December and January, or we might see a really good set of actors. But until I have some really good reason. And I have some interesting phone calls most every day, including last night, including when I was on the radio show today. I got an interesting phone call. I got to hook back and talk to this guy. I have a contact that is a whistleblower like me. And he recently, I'm going to give you a dollar range so nobody knows specifically, because you can figure out who this person, well, it won't be public what the dollar amount is, but this person's looking forward to a legal settlement of between $1.2 billion and $1.9 billion. And I got a phone call from him today, and it was favorable, but I didn't have time to talk, and neither did he. But what happens in our court system is we're all abused by the courts, and the courts are owned lock, stock, and barrel by the monarch and the Jesuits. And people may not believe that. If they do a little bit of light reading, I mean, you don't have to Google very hard to find these truths out. But I know I sound negative when I talk about these things, and believe me, they're very discouraging to me. But somebody's got to talk about them. Now, before you can talk about them, somebody's got to learn about them. And you're not going to learn watching TV, listening to the radio. You're not going to learn reading the papers. You're not going to see it on TV. You're not going to, if you're at a sporting event, you're not learning, you're watching.
I have to say, one of the things that I've noticed is if you watch television, like some of these from other countries, like say, for instance, I was watching something from Argentina the other day, and they were talking about something financial because that's why I was watching it. My current book happens in Argentina, so I'm curious about it, and I know about their financial malaise and everything. So, and one of the people on this show, out of nowhere, he says the intelligence director from the Vatican was here, and they're saying that basically he goes on, yeah, he was a Mason. Yeah, but a lot of our leaders are Masons. And I was like, wait, where did this come from? And it was, like I said, this was from another country. It just was stuck in there like it was no big deal. And they just kept talking about the politics and everything else. It's like, whoa, either they're like playing with their population there too with this sort of stuff to try to get them crazy, or there really is an intelligence director like at the Vatican. And as you said before, the Jesuits are they're the
intelligent and military branch.
So maybe that what the person said was true. Maybe that's what they were talking about.
True. I'm sure it's true, because the intelligence people, it used to be in our country that we had respect and we trusted our intelligence branch. Let me end that for everybody right now. You're familiar with the intelligence service called the CIA, correct?
Yeah, sure.
That's sold out and operated by the United Kingdom again. Now, George H.W. Bush was in the CIA from 1953, and of course, it's one of those means once you're in, you're in. You never get out or you get killed, because that's the oath they take. The Jesuit oath, and then these other, you said Masons, Skull and Bones. These secret societies, they're not so much secret anymore. There's a lot of people that are more vocal than me, that are more articulate than me, that are more educated than me, or more intelligent. There's a lot of people that know what's going on. And I think the vast majority of us feel motivated and obligated to share it with as broad an audience as we possibly can. And then, other people in our culture would say, well, I wouldn't want to do that. You're going to get killed. Well, we're all going to die anyway. So are you going to let 25 million children be, I'm choosing my words carefully because, family show. Do you want to have 25 million children kidnapped and abused and worse? And I'll get to the worse at the end, 5 minutes. But no, I mean, I have to speak out. And am I afraid to do it? No, not at all. You called me yesterday. You asked me once. I said, I'll do it.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you are. The reason why I end up writing my books, quite frankly, is as if it's every night I would write these things till like 2 a.m. after I put my kids to bed. And yep. I always thought of it as a life insurance policy, because at least I was putting it out there. Yep. And if all of a sudden I was dead someday, they'd
yep.
be like, holy Joe, look
now we know why.
Now we know why. So I felt really, really safe after I wrote the book. I felt very hassled, harassed before I got the books out.
Yes. Well, let me remind you that I said before I went to Malaysia as an insurance policy for myself, I told them they're going to lose another airplane if they don't. I didn't say you're going to lose another airplane. I said, if you don't expose the two mechanisms, and I realized I only explained one of them, the Boeing uninterruptible autopilot. The other one's called the ATI, which is the air tranquilizer injector.
For God's sakes, that's a creepy name.
Yeah, you know what it does?
What?
Jet airplanes fly up high enough where if you didn't have pressurized cabins, you'd fall asleep and die because of oxygen starvation. So the cabin air conditioning on any of these airliners, any of them, doesn't matter if it's made in Brazil has Embraers, Canada has Bombardiers, France has Airbus, Boeings are here in the United States, and Sukhoi, S-U-K-H-O-I, in Russia. Doesn't matter. They've all got this stuff. They got an uninterruptible autopilot, and they have an ATI. And the ATI, I'm going to use alcohol for a metaphor, but it doesn't give you alcohol. It gives you a colorless, tasteless, odorless gas in the cabin pressure system. And it's called dial-a-yield. But everyone out there, whether they're a teetotaler or a lush, most adults in America, Canada, and the Western world are very familiar with alcohol and its effect. If you or I have no idea how tall you are or what you weigh, it doesn't matter. You're a normal adult. I'm somewhat normal adult. If we each had an ounce of, say, scotch or vodka, if we had an ounce, nobody within 30 feet of us would see any change in our behavior at all, because that's not enough. I mean, it might have some effect. You might enjoy drinking it, but it's not going to change your behavior or your speech. You're not going to slur more because you had 1 ounce of alcohol. Okay, I've got a coffee cup in my left hand. There's nothing in it. I'm not drinking. It's just water. But if you take a 12-ounce coffee cup and pour straight alcohol in it, say 80 to 90 proof, and you drink it really quickly, like in 2 to 3 minutes, then that would take a lot. Most people couldn't handle that much alcohol in 2 to 3 minutes, but it can be done. Well, you would feel sort of warm and relaxed initially, and probably within 15, 20 minutes, everyone within 30 feet of you would say, that guy sure got hammered quick, or that lady. And then if you took a half gallon and just slugged it on down, which probably doesn't happen very often, but there's people who can do that, well, you might be dead. That's exactly what the air tranquilizing injector is, and it was a good program. In the event of a strong arm hijacking, it was designed to keep the flight attendants and the passengers calm, sort of mildly sedated. Well,
get out of town. That's a real thing.
Oh, it's a real thing. And I told Malaysia, I said, when your airplane landed at Diego Garcia, all the passengers were dead. And
I can't wait to tell somebody who's researching because this is Okay, yeah.
Everything I'm telling you, I publish, and you can tell from my energy level, I'm alive. I'm not dead. I'm not.
Well, yeah, I also want to make sure you tell us this blockbuster thing, because it's a quarter of, okay, because we've got, yeah, I just want to make sure it comes out before we have to cut you off.
Oh, no, you give me a hint when I need to blurt it out. I just want to, as a courtesy to your listeners, if they don't want to get really sort of sick, because it is very sick, and if you're a parent, it's hard to deal with. And I'm a parent of 5, and I'm a grandparent of 5. But I want people to be able to leave. And then if they're curious later, they can come back and listen to the archive. But by the way, I just published this. The truth I'm going to tell you today, I published it for the first time yesterday, which was Tuesday. We do not do radio shows on Tuesday. I got a phone call from an interesting person on Monday night, and I got up and thought about it. I checked it out with some other people that are pretty knowledgeable. And I decided, I don't have an ego, because you've heard me say 3 times, I'm working for God. So there's no ego. It's just that's what he wants me to do, expose evil. But when I heard that, I checked it out, and then I called my wife over in England at about 1:37 p.m. yesterday, and I said to my wife, I'm going to go on the radio as soon as I get on the radio, because I got something that's so evil, and nobody's talking about it. Just in case I slip on a piece of soap in the shower tonight, I want to get this out, and I want to do it as a courtesy to the good people in America who are putting the handcuffs and taking the pictures and the thumbprints, and they're going to take down these pedophiles. They are, I promise. But I want to get out this super, super evil stuff before anybody in the media is even touching it, because we've been doing this 11 years. We have a pretty good reputation for being ahead of the curve. And one of the reasons we can be ahead of the curve is we have a very large chat room and following around the world. And, they all come in as new people. They listen to us, and for maybe 2 or 3 months, they think we're sort of nuts. After about 6 months, they say, oh, yeah, I get it. And then after a year or two, they basically become voluntary truth researchers. They're not going out looking for conspiracy theories. There's nothing conspiratorial about what I've been doing. It's crime and it's evil. Oh, I never told you my 3 connections to 9/11. You got the connection between my sister and Hillary Clinton, the technology. Okay, my second connection is my Air National Guard unit from Fargo. They were on air defense alert down at Norfolk, Virginia at Langley Air Force Base on the morning of 9/11, and they were scrambled after the 2 airplanes hit World Trade 1 and 2. They had reason to believe that Washington was going to be next. So they scrambled the Otis Air National Guard Base on Cape Cod. They scrambled F-15s, that have weapons to kill, and they scrambled F-16s that were from my unit, Fargo. And the Fargo F-16s went to the Capitol and to Shanksville for United 93. The F-15s from Cape Cod went to New York City. So I've got my sister and Hillary involved in the technology of remote control. I've got my own Air National Guard guys, and they're fighter pilots. So if I say they're beer drinking friends, that's true, because that guard unit on Thursday nights they have a social gathering, and most people have a beer or a mixed drink, and some people are teetotalers, and I really respect those guys. I'm going to become one, by the way. I tried it out when I was in England with my wife. She's a teetotaler, so she made a comment about something related to alcohol, and I said, and if she was relating beer to mixed drinks, and I said, you know what, who needs either one of them? She said, you like them both. I said, yeah, I like them, but I don't need them. And she said, you're kidding. I said, watch me. And for the next 16 days, not only did I not have anything, I didn't have a desire. I didn't want to have anything.
Well, good for you. That's awesome. Hey, I do want to let you know, we want to know about this thing, this special thing that you're, this evil, horrible thing.
You want the bad news right now?
Yeah, I do.
The reason some of these politicians like McCain, Hillary Clinton, and my sister are starting to cross-implicate, and when I say cross-implicate, younger people would say rat out or squeal. Mm-hmm. They're squealing against each other now, and this one, it's not in the media, but they're being read the riot act by the people that are trying to save this country. They said you're either going to come over to the good side or you're going to be dead. That's exactly what they're telling them. And the reason these people are so afraid and they're cross-implicating is because there's videotape of a lot of these politicians. It's called child sacrifice. They get into groups, they have a video camera going, and they sacrifice a child. And what I mean by that, it's typically they stab them until they're dead. And it's videotaped. But that's not even the worst part. Guess what they do? They drink their blood. Now, is that good? Or, I mean, we know it's not good, but are you satisfied that that's pretty darn evil and nobody's talking about it?
All right. Now, this is why I want to talk about this. Is this connected to Demon Face?
Demon Face is a software from Serco, which is a private corporation. I'd encourage your listeners to go to YouTube tonight and put in SERCO, Serco. And the title is Serco, the biggest company you never heard of. Nobody's heard about Serco. Serco controls the United States of America, period. They control a lot of things. They control prisons. They control hospitals. They control our military from A to Z, all of it. They control our patent office. This will blow you out of the water. They control the National Visa Center. So here I am, yakety yak, every day for the last 11 years, exposing Serco, and Serco is getting a little hot under the collar because they know the penalty for what they've been doing for a long, long time. But anyway, Demon Face recognition software, it's deployed on streets in Los Angeles and I think New York City. But basically, they have cameras that can take a picture of your facial features and know exactly who you are. And so they can either stop you from doing something if you're a bad person, or they can cause you to do something if you're an extortable person. And Serco is just evil personified, and it's spelled SERCO. I do feel confident that if the people that are truly running this country are good people and they do intend to save it, I think that Abel Danger will be credited someday with getting Serco out of the United States of America. They need to go back to England, and they also need to, pray to be forgiven what they've done to the American people. And it's my great pleasure to articulate this. And I'm going to send you a picture when we get off the air. I've got a picture my wife took of me at the headquarters of Serco. It's a town in the United Kingdom, about 30 miles from my wife's dwelling. And the town is called Hook, Hook. And not only does this picture show me standing in casual clothes right in front of their world headquarters, but a graphic artist who's a professional, 70 years old, he was in advertising for 30, 40 years. He put in two demons behind me because Serco demon software, it's related to extortion and trapping politicians over pedophile sex.
And that's why I brought that up, because we were talking about the pedophile stuff, about the drinking of the blood. You said they tape it. And I said, wait a second, could this be related to that software, Demon Face, used to extort people?
Yeah, they get them on film. They got my sister on film. Do you know what adrenochrome is?
No.
You know what adrenaline is?
Yes.
Okay, these perverts, and I don't mean sexual deviancy, I mean killers. In Europe and Belgium and in England both, the elitists like to get together and they chase children. Maybe they'll get 10 or 15 kids between 9 and 14, and they'll chase them with dogs to get the children really, really scared. And that shoots adrenaline into the blood of these young children, and it super oxygenates their blood. And then the elitists kill the kids and drink their blood, because this is so bad. They think that by drinking the super oxygenated adrenochrome, which is a chemical, blood of a recently killed child, that's like going to make them live longer.
Oh, man. We're going to sign off pretty soon. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Everybody, I want you to go over to abeldanger.org, ABELDANGER.org. And thank you so much, Field McCONNELL. You've just blown everybody's mind, and we're definitely going to be checking out Monster by Steppenwolf.
Yeah, and we're dealing with monsters. Thank you very much for having the nerve to have me on.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And I wanted to thank Danny Romero for hooking us up. This is a great thing, the Shadow Citizens. He's the producer of this, and he's literally the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. And I do hope that you do come talk on American Freedom Radio again. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it.